Okay, so I just wanted to show you, Kempton, these prints because they kind of give you an idea of, you know, the beginnings of where I started when I was in undergrad, as well as the influence of printmaking on my work. So this is something like a Sunday. So I guess my interest in urban spaces began when I was a kid, and I go on these long drives with my parents, and like I'd be stuck in the car and looking out the window, and I think that kind of contemplative space really was where I began to take an interest in, in the subject matter as well as in art. Like when you're sitting in the car and you listen to music and you kind of have a sense of, you know, of the landscape going, rolling on before you, like, and just thinking of moods and, being in tune with the beauty around you. I mean, that's kind of a cliche, but so this piece, yeah, was my first silk screen, one of my first silk screens, and yeah, it was really fun to do in a way because, like, say here, like this was another area where I didn't really plan the image out. I just kind of went with, okay, this shape, this drawing, but then laid out like this blob here really randomly and just laid it on top of it. And it unified like this more conscious drawing of a car. I mean, of course, it's based on a blind contour where you look at an object and you draw it without looking at your paper. So it kind of gives you an idea of a car without giving you like four wheels or whatever. But again, just sort of giving you an impression of a space and a place and a mood. So it's called something like a
Now it
Sunday.
does look like a car. Before it looks like a skull.
Like a skull?
Yeah, before,
Yeah.
without you mentioning it. But yeah,
Yeah.
that's the magic of art, right? So this piece.
Oh, this piece. Yeah, and I guess that's one of the things about art too is that, people, like, I have a very concrete idea of what I think it is, and then other people always have their own readings of it. And that's something as an artist you have to let go of, I guess. But yeah, this piece, it was in a sketchbook. I drew a building, and again, I wanted to, like this one, evoke a space, but evoke a time of contemplation again, like walking home from school and having this foggy mist, and that's kind of what this blob represents. And I guess you can see the logical continuation between those two things, like having something concrete that you recognize, but then some things that you don't necessarily. And so yeah, this one's called Raspberry Afternoon. And this is etching. I started taking etching, which is much more drawing based, because you take a copper plate, and you can either physically etch like a line into the plate, and when you put ink on it, the ink fills the hole. So it's kind of like I don't know, I guess like making a chocolate mold or something like that. Like you fill up the line. So this is etching. It's called Because of the Rain, and it started off very clean. It was just these lines of buildings only. And the nice thing about printmaking is you can take a impression of the paint of the drawing as you go along, and then the next layer I put on was these sort of abstract marks, and the acid began to accidentally eat into the plate, and I quite liked that accident.
So you mean you can keep adding layers onto the etching results?
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah. So that is basically how you do printmaking. Like sometimes people will etch the entire thing in one sitting, and that's it. It's done. But you can always, once you cut the line into the plate, then you can go back in, and the acid will eat it even more, and the line will become from a gray to a really dark black. So you have to be careful. Sometimes the plate, that means like the image can sometimes be lost if you put in the acid for too long. So it's kind of like a magical relationship you can have with the work. So this one, I actually put this blotch on, I guess, last minute. It just needed something else, and I wanted to denote something magical or something surreal happening in the image, and I was playing with a different color, so it just happened to be to just try rubbing that extra different ink on after I put the black on, just with this brown, and it turned out like I think I don't know if everyone sees what I see, which is like people walking down that street, and there's just some sort of surreal portal opening up, but yeah, it's another work of mine.
Yeah, I do see the surrealness of it. But people walking through it, no.
No, you don't see the figures?
Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah, I see the figures now.
If you don't see the figures, it's okay.